Hello, in this video I'm going to be customizing my PRS Silver Sky SE. I've had my Silver Sky for a couple of months now. It arrived I think at the beginning of April this year. On the day that they were announcing the SE's release, I was just refreshing the page until I could actually buy one. And I think I put in a pre-order about 8 minutes after they were officially released. So I've had it now for a couple of months, like I said. I used it recently for the cover of Gravity that I did. If you haven't seen that, check out the video.
Gravity has taken better men than me.
My main gripe with it is that I don't really like the colours. For me, the stone blue was the nicest of the four that they announced, so that's the one that I ordered. But even this colour, it's a bit of a kind of greeny blue, and I just don't really like it that much in person. So as soon as I ordered it, I thought, okay, I'll get it, but I'll refinish it in nitro and do it in the colour that I like. So that's what this video is about. I'm going to be refinishing this in Daphne Blue, and then I thought if I'm going to be taking the guitar apart anyway, I might as well do some other mods. So I've got a cream coloured pickguard that's on the way, and I've got these Fender Vibrolux knobs, which I thought would be quite fun to throw on. I don't know if you can see, I'll get some close-ups of them in a bit. They're not standard Stratocaster knobs, they're quite a far out idea to put on a Strat, but I figured if I'm going to do some mods to it anyway, I might as well have a bit of fun. So it'll be cream knobs, cream pickguard, and then annoyingly I did some research online and found out that the pickup covers are actually not the standard size of a Strat. So if you get some aftermarket cream pickup covers, they won't actually fit the Silver Sky. So what I'm going to do instead is try and age these myself. So just before I take it all apart and potentially ruin it forever, let's do some tone tests. Silver Sky SE with polyurethane finish. And this, 1 month later, wearing the same t-shirt for consistency, is the Nitro Silver Sky. Tonally, there's probably not a huge amount of difference, but as you can probably see, it's changed aesthetically massively. So, this is the build. Obviously, if you're going to refinish a guitar, the first step is to completely disassemble it. So I had to take the neck off and then the pick guard and then unsolder all of the electronics so that I could just have the wooden body on its own. Like I mentioned at the start of the video, while I was taking everything apart, I took the pickup covers off, sanded them down slightly with some steel wool, and then put them in some turmeric for a few days and let them go yellow. More on this in a bit. Once that was done, it was on to painting. First of all, before I could do any painting, I had to remove the existing poly finish. The best way that I found to do this is using a heat gun. It's quite a long process, but it's quite cool to watch. Basically, you just use the heat gun to heat up the poly lacquer, and once it gets to a certain temperature, because it's really brittle, it just starts exploding off. I didn't even really have to use the scraper very much. For the most part, once it got hot enough, it just broke off on its own. As you can see here, I'm sanding over the edges of the back route where the trem claw normally goes. The reason I wanted to do this is because on the core Silver Sky model, these are much more rounded over and smooth, and I think it looks really classy, so I tried to replicate that on my SE model. As well as rounding over the edges, I also filled in the holes for the back plate with some wood filler. The core model Silver Sky doesn't even come with the back plate, so there's no holes drilled for it, which again I think looks really nice. I've taken the back plate off of all the Strats that I've owned, so I filled in the holes on the body and sanded them so they were nice and smooth, so that once it was painted you'd never know there were holes there in the first place. And then on to painting. The first layer I do is a couple of coats of nitro sanding sealer. This stops the primer and colour coats seeping into the wood. I then did 2 layers of the white primer and then 4 layers of the Daphne Blue. This took quite a lot of time, so let's skip ahead into the future. The next step after painting is wet sanding the body. This is what it looks like before sanding. Again, you can see the edges are now nicely rolled over and the holes for the backplate are completely invisible. Then I started the wet sanding. The first grit that I used was 800, and then I slowly made my way up all the way to 3000. You can go higher for a really gloss finish, but I wanted it to be slightly matte still, as that's the look that a lot of old vintage nitro guitars have. This is what it looks like after sanding. It's actually a bit glossier than this in person. It looks a bit less shiny on camera for some reason. Now that the body is dry and sanded, it's ready to be put back together. So I started by replacing all of the electronics from the old white pickguard into the new cream coloured one. This is what the pickup covers look like after a few days soaking in the turmeric and then a bit of sanding just to take the edge off. They did initially come out almost neon yellow, which was a bit strong. They looked more like something you'd find on an Ibanez gem. But with a light bit of sanding with some steel wool, it brought some of the white back through and made them a nice cream colour. It's not absolutely perfect and they're not an exact colour match with the pickguard, but I think they look pretty nice and it's definitely better than the bright white they started as. Next I put the Vibrolux knobs on. Initially I wasn't sure if these were going to fit on the pots or not, so I was really happy when I realised they were actually going to work. Finally I put the neck back on and then also replaced the strap buttons, and then at this point it's pretty much done. I couldn't resist starting a bit of the relicking while I was doing the sanding, so you might have noticed there's already a few bits bashed up. But once the guitar was back together, that's when I really got stuck in and did the majority of the relicking. The guitars I built before were quite heavily relicked, and I wanted to do something a bit more tasteful and subtle on this one. So I didn't do any big major areas of bare wood. I mainly just went for small scratches and dents in the key areas. I haven't sped this process up too much. Lots of people in the previous guitar build videos were very interested in the relicking process. There isn't really a correct way to do this, and I've never had any professional training or advice. This is just stuff that I've learned from trial and error from building a few guitars. For the main dents, I just use blunt objects like the pliers and screwdriver to hit the guitar and take some bigger chunks out of it. And then for more precise scratches and smaller dents, I used a few different scalpels with different attachments to either take small chips out of the lacquer or scrape away bits to reveal some of the wood. Hopefully, if you're interested in doing the same, this will be fairly useful. Once that was done, I gave the fretboard some love by polishing the frets and then oiling the rosewood as well. And then finally, an idea that I had quite late in this process that I thought would be cool is I designed a new truss rod cover. I really like the one that comes on the core Silver Sky model, and I think the plastic traditional PRS one that comes on the SE just looks a bit naff in comparison. So I tried to make something that would look similar to the core model. This is a bit DIY and it doesn't look perfect up close, so I might change it later in the future. I flattened it out and then designed a shape that was similar to the dog tag style of the core model, and then cut it out and drilled a hole and put it on the top of the guitar. I think it looks pretty good. I talk about it again in a second at the end of the video. And then finally, obviously I put some strings on it, and that's the end of the build. So there we go, that's the build finished. I'm really happy with it. I love the colour of the Daphne blue. It looks even better in person than I think it looks on camera. And all of the cream plastic parts look really nice with it. I'm also super happy with the Vibrolux knobs. I think they look really quirky and it just adds a bit of a unique character to the guitar. The relicking also turned out great. It's kind of not too in your face, quite tastefully done. And the truss rod cover looks really cool on camera. When you look at it this close up, it does look a little bit like the inside of a tin can, but for all the YouTube videos I'm going to be filming, you'll only see it from this sort of distance anyway. Somewhere down the line I might make something a little bit more robust for it. We'll see what happens. I'm going to try not to get copyrighted on this video. We'll see how that actually goes. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the process. If you did, I've got some other videos on my channel about building guitars as well. About this time last year, I posted a video of me building my dream Strat, and I've also got a couple of tele builds on there, and I'm going to be posting some videos soon where a couple of subscribers have actually sent me their guitars to do some work on them. Speaking of which, if you're interested, I do occasionally take commissions when I'm not too busy, so if you'd like to get your guitar relicked or refinished in nitro, leave a comment below or maybe drop me a message on Instagram, that might be easier, and we can talk. Consider liking, subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video.